Please consider supporting Black Women United YEG for the protection and advancement of black women and girls in Alberta. You can learn more about them at bwunited.ca. They are always looking for donations and volunteers. So please, again, support Black Women United YEG for the protection and advancement of black women and girls in Alberta. Again, that website is bwunited.ca.
Hello, fellow Creative Control listeners. My name is Mac Cameron. I live in Toronto, and I have been listening to Creative Control with Vish Khanna since episode 119. That featured all 5 members of one of my favorite bands, Constantines. I listened backwards from there and then forwards, and I know it sounds, over the top or cliche, but finding the show changed the course of my life. It inspired me to pursue a career in radio and to do what I can to support the arts in my community and across the country. So I give to Creative Control because I feel like I owe the show and Vish for helping me figure out what the hell to do with my life. Beyond that, I give to Creative Control because I think independent media, especially insightful, entertaining, thoughtful, and thorough independent media, is something that is worth paying for. What I appreciate about Creative Control is Vish's ability to treat Canadian artists, or any artist for that matter, with the seriousness and appreciation he would any other artist. His excellent rapport with people like Steve Albini and the members of Fugazi and Stephen Malcolmus and others have earned him international appreciation. However, it's his trove of interviews with what I consider to be the most exciting generation of Canadian musicians, conducted out of genuine passion and interest, that makes this show so special. I think it is an archive of some really exciting music that is way, way underreported on and appreciated. That's why I contribute to Creative Control with Vish Khanna, and I hope you will do the same.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control today. I'm Vish's wife, and I will love him no matter what you do. And now he has me on the record saying that.
Janel, Leppin, and Anthony Pirog are very talented, prolific musicians and partners in life who currently call Silver Spring, Maryland, home. Leppin is an esteemed cellist, composer, bandleader, and visual artist, and Pirog is among the most talented guitarists, improvisers, and composers of his generation, whose work in the Messthetics has prompted him to visit this show in the past. Acquaintances since high school, the couple have been collaborating for decades, often under the name Janel and Anthony, and on June 28, 2024, Cuneiform Records released their first new music in 12 years. It's a wondrous double album called New Moon in the Evil Age. But wait, there's more. On that same day, Cuneiform also released Leppin's Ensemble Volcanic Ash, To March is to Love. But wait! On May 17th, 2024, Otherly Love Records released Pirog's stirring new album, The Hunger Artist. But wait! No, I'm just kidding. That's pretty much all the records that were discussed when Janel and Anthony joined me for a talk recently, also about things like growing up and moving around a lot, living in small houses in a forest, being both grunge and rockabilly kids, how they respectively began pursuing cello and guitar, and the road from classical and composition-based music to improvisation, singing and songwriting, the state of music and protesting to preserve it, other future plans, and much more. A part of the Lionsgate Sound Network with the support of listeners like you who follow and subscribe to this listener-supported and donor-driven podcast. Spread the word about it, leave nice ratings and reviews on your podcast platform, and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/Creative Control, which is the primary and most reliable way for a podcaster just like me to make a living. This is my only source of income, so every bit helps. And a monthly subscription of $6 American or its currency equivalent means you can access every single episode of this show in its entirety, which is not the case without that monthly subscription. All amounts are welcome, higher and lower, but when you start in at $6 American, or its currency equivalent. That's where you get everything. So if you can, support the show. That would be great. Please visit patreon.com/creative control. And support me and never miss a single episode of this show. Plus, in-kind support from independent businesses like Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario. This is episode 887 of Creative Control, featuring the lovely and talented Janel and Anthony, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hi, Anthony. How's it going?
It's great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for talking to me.
Oh, of course. It's lovely to have you back on the show. It's lovely. I really mean that. I'm not just saying that, Anthony.
I believe you.
Where in the world are you today?
I am. Well, we both are in Silver Spring, Maryland, in our home.
It looks lovely, if I might say, just on my screen. They got lovely wallpaper, maybe, and even is the ceiling also painted?
Yeah, this is all Janelle's work. Janelle is. You probably read that she's also a visual artist, so it's all over our house.
It looks.
So thanks for noticing.
Yeah, no, it looks beautiful, if I might say. And speaking of Janelle, hi Janelle, how are you?
Hi Vish, how you doing?
I'm very well. It's lovely to meet you and encounter you for the first time. I believe we've never met.
No, this is wonderful. Thank you.
It's lovely to have you on the show. Anthony's been on a few times now, a couple times, I think. Yes. Has he ever mentioned me to you? Does he ever talk about me? Does he say bad things? I'm just curious.
Yeah, this guy Vish, in Edmonton.
I'm sure my name hasn't come up. Your house looks lovely. You're in a separate room there. And what do you got? What is that, a loom? No, what's going on behind you? You got some stuff going on.
Yeah, this is my music and art studio. So I'm a weaver, and this is a piece that I just finished and I'm waiting to dry. And then, it's got my instruments and everything.
Very nice. How did you get into, I was going to say, how did you get into art, but that seems a little unspecific. How did you get into weaving?
Well, I had a closet full of like old vintage, beautiful pieces that I used to wear. They had holes in them, all these dresses and everything. And, carrying amps upstairs and in high heels and such. It happens. And I just wanted them up on my wall somehow.
Oh, nice. Well, it looks lovely. I appreciate that DIY aspect of everything you seem to do. Do you have any formal training in art, per se, and the art making that we were just describing?
No, it's just with my mother. She was an art teacher growing up, so she, fed me this stuff.
I see. What about music background, education?
Yes, I studied classically on the cello for, many, many years through college. And then when I met Anthony, it all went south.
Oh, no. Anthony, what did you do? Why did it all go south?
I don't know. I guess I introduced the idea of improvisation.
Oh.
And that was the end of that. Yeah, but I don't know. We just started getting together and trying to improvise, and that's how we started playing. So should I tell you more about that?
You can do whatever you want. This is your time. You can. I invited you on. You can say whatever you like. No, please do. You know what? I'm going to help. I'm going to be the host, and I'm going to interject just for a moment. And I'm going to actually, because I think this is really lovely. The fact that you are partners in life and partners in work. So we have to delve into all of these things. I would also like to quickly mention, Anthony, you've been on the show before, and in the past, when you've been on the show, we've had one record to talk about. And that's, for my purposes, that's very simple. I don't have a problem with that. We talk about one thing you've made, no problem. Today, I think, unless I'm unprepared somehow, we have 3 albums potentially to talk about, Anthony. Is that correct?
3, and one of them is a double record. So
4. technically 4. If you not
technically 4.
Actually, no, technically 3, but really 4. Which
4
is
LPs.
4 pieces. Yes, that's right. 4 pieces of vinyl. So this is. I will tell you both. I've been doing this a long time. I'm a little nervous. I feel like I'm not prepared for the exam. There's too much material. And I'm like, where do I even begin? But I have a thought.
Same.
You're the same. Yes. So this is, first of all, congratulations, because this double LP, if I understand things correctly, the double LP is 12 years in the making. Is that right?
Yes, I'm afraid that's the case.
Now, sometimes when people say it was a couple years in the making, they might be referring just to the last time they put out a record, which I think is that true as well? How long has it been since your last collaboration?
2012 was Where's Home, and that was our first record on cuneiform.
Right. So 2012 is the last one. Anthony, does that stand to reason that as soon as the day that record came out, you began working on this double LP?
I mean, within the year, we started planning the next release. But I should say some of the material on this record was recorded before that. I mean, there are certain tracks and elements that we recorded at home in maybe 2009. So we might not have known that we were going to use those elements at the time. But yeah, this stuff is spanning a long period.
Well, I just want to say right off the top, congratulations on getting this done. Janelle, you must be relieved as much as anything else.
Yeah, we both really are.
Yeah.
It's been a mountain to climb in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, it's a monumental release in many ways, and I hope we get to it before we go too much further. But I do want to talk about this union. You alluded to meeting Anthony there, Janelle. Let's just, for the sake of everyone listening, let's just go down memory lane. And I don't want to pry. But Anthony, I'm going to start with you. How did you meet Janelle exactly? What were the circumstances?
Well, we were in high school. We went to high school together. And I met Janelle in the hall in high school in between classes. Janelle, is it okay if I tell the exact story?
Okay.
I don't have to. I can leave it at that.
It's fine. It's cute.
All right. So I knew who Janelle was because we were both music kids and we were just kind of grunge kids. So
sorry, Anthony, sorry to interrupt you, but where in the world was the school?
This is in Northern Virginia, Madison High School in Vienna, Virginia. We both grew up there. It's like 20 minutes outside of D.C.
Right. But you also had some California roots. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was born in Pennsylvania, and then we moved to Chevy Chase, Maryland, which is just outside of D.C. Then we moved to California, and then when I was 10, we settled here in Virginia.
Okay. What were you running from? Why did you move so much? Were you running from the law?
Well, my dad had different jobs. So my dad was a professor and, ended up teaching in several different places. So
is that I've had many guests on the show, many artists, in fact, it seems, have that kind of trajectory. They lived all over your country, or sometimes they lived overseas. Is that, and this is not a therapy session, don't get me wrong, but was that difficult for you to move around and live in so many different places, or was it good?
Well, like Janelle mentioned, our second record is called Where Is Home, so no, it's not on my mind at all. No, but seriously, no, I was very young when we were moving around. Like, we got to California when I was 3, so I don't even really remember. My first memories are in Chevy Chase, but I remember being in California, and then we moved to DC. And yeah, of course, moving is always a little difficult, but DC I consider it my home.
Yeah. Okay.
So no, it wasn't that bad.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry to interrupt with a geography lesson. I just thought it would be potentially helpful. And actually, before you continue about this meet cute or whatever it is that was happening in the school, Janelle, did you live in a bunch of places as well, or more stationary?
I just grew up in a forest in Vienna, Virginia, and that is it. Yeah, I've lived in other places since then as, an adult, but Seattle, New York, here, where we were like long distance, where I was working with various people. But yeah, basically Virginia, and now Maryland. You
said a forest. Was there a house, or were you just out in the woods?
Yeah, there were 13 little cottages that my ancestors built, and I'm very short, but I could touch the ceiling in them. They were very tiny.
That sounds lovely. On the one hand,
It was.
Yeah, okay.
It's very rustic, but like very fairy tale-ish. Yeah, and that's where we spent most of our time when we were kind of dating a little bit.
Okay. And we're going to get to that in a moment.
Yeah, was that was like a 7-acre piece of land, right, Janelle, with those houses?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it was in the middle of, the suburbs where we grew up, but it felt isolated. So
I see.
It was
okay.
a very, very special place that was unlike the rest of the area here.
A lot of, I was going to say a lot of wildlife, but did you encounter any interesting wildlife per se, Janelle?
Well, the wildest animals were the humans that were coming back there because they were looking for little people, because the houses were so small that they dubbed it. I don't know how to say this exactly, but anyway, they thought it was a village for little people. And so I would hide behind trees and watch to see if these people were like nice people or like potentially violent or crazy people. So usually they were like teenagers just like investigating because they couldn't understand in a McMansion kind of neighborhood, like why were these little tiny falling apart 100-year-old houses here? And they made up this very weird suburban myth.
With all sensitivity, I just want to clarify this. When you say little people, I mean, we think of people who are little as little people, but do you just mean you are short, or were you part of a group of little people, if you will?
No, they just like people couldn't understand what these structures were, so they dubbed it like a word that I don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah, that's I'm trying to be careful too. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, but anyway, so it wasn't actually the situation, but that's where I grew up. And it was a very mythical kind of place, had a lot of myths about it.
Wow, that's really interesting and fascinating. Okay, cool. But as Anthony says, in a suburb, you were nestled in a suburb, which all of this sounds very, okay. You know what? We got 3 records to talk. I could talk about this all day, and I want to find out more. We got lots to get to, but that's really fascinating itself. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you with all of that, geography and forest and whatever cabin info there. Anthony, can you bring us back to the hallway and how you and Janelle first met?
Yeah, okay. So I think I was 15 and you were 14, Janelle. And they were taking some kind of photo for the yearbook where they wanted to kind of make it look like Janelle was being pushed into a locker by somebody else. Oh. And I remember I just walked up to her and I said, "Don't do it." And that's how we met. And then I later saw her performing with the orchestra in school. And, I saw her playing cello. I was like, oh, there's that cool person playing cello. Oh. And we weren't really friends in high school, but we knew each other and we maybe hung out a few times. But after high school, we both went into, studying music in college, and we became friends and would hang out during the summers in Wedderburn, the place that Janelle grew up in. Because I could go there late at night, and Janelle would make a bonfire, and we'd just play and improvise, and we wouldn't disturb anybody because it was such a large piece of land. Oh. And I was interested in writing for the cello because obviously it's like the most beautiful instrument. I mean, it just hits everyone's heart in a very specific way. So I was studying jazz, and I was interested in the way John Zorn would write for different kinds of ensembles. So I wrote a couple pieces, and Janelle played with me and was on my first record that was called Ignorant American. I wrote a song called Janelle, and we still play that, but that's how we met and how we started.
That's really beautiful. Janelle, I noticed Anthony was hesitant about telling I assume the locker stuffing story. Is it okay if I tell the locker stuffing story? That's what I think he was getting at there.
I don't care. It's fine. Yeah.
When he suggested to you that you don't do it, what did you make of that moment? Did it resonate with you?
Well, Anthony was really an interesting character in high school. I was a little intimidated by him, but he had this magnificent pompadour, and he just looked like a rockabilly kid, and I was like a grunge kid. So I was like, well, there's that cute guy, and he's talking to me. Sounds like good advice. So I think I'm going to follow him. And he didn't say, like, don't do it. He was like, don't do it. I was like, okay.
Wow, like Fonzie. You're basically the high school Fonzie. Is that what happened, Anthony?
Oh, my gosh.
Hey, don't do it. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Well, he's from Jersey. So.
Oh, yeah.
My family is from New Jersey. But
good Lord, we're going to hit every state of your union in the course of this conversation. Amazing.
I don't know how people see me. I'm learning more and more as this conversation goes on. So,
so did you abstain from participating in the staged photo there, Janelle?
Yes.
Okay.
I abandoned ship. Yeah.
Okay. You were a grunge kid. What drew you to? Do you mean I assume you mean the genre signifier for the music? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what drew you to it exactly?
Kurt Cobain, probably.
Nirvana.
Yeah.
I was the exact same. I loved him and still do. Yeah. So
I see your Sonic Youth poster. I see you.
Yeah. I got my Sonic. It keeps getting a lot of conversation about that particular poster. I have all this art on the wall, but people always want to talk about that. I don't know. And random people. I've been on the Zooms with like financial people like, oh, Sonic Youth. I saw them. I'm like, what? Okay. I was expecting you to notice that. Maybe I can't decide if I should blur the black background or not. But anyway, so.
Well, it's funny how kids like make identities based on their interest in music. You know, I see that still now. And I definitely was like that.
Well, I think, if I may, for me, it has stretched on into adulthood. Clearly, this poster is from my teenage years, and I hadn't seen it in maybe 25 years until my family and I moved from Ontario to Alberta about 4 years ago, and my parents were like, "Take all your shit, take everything." So I mostly did, but yeah, I was stuffing. I was just going through these posters, and I found this one. I was like, it's kind of cool. Their faces are all scratched out. It's kind of a neat one. Lee Ronaldo told me he really liked it and remembered this, but he hadn't seen it in a long time. And I had it mounted or whatever. And and every once in a while but there's also people who are like, oh, Sonic Youth. And like they're music people, like they're like, I'm like, oh, did they have a run-in? Like this is a tension alleviating and building image is what I'm saying. This Sonic Youth poster. Anyway, I'm sorry. I digressed. And it's also fresh on my mind because Jim O'Rourke. You guys know Jim O'Rourke?
I just saw you interviewed him, and I can't wait to listen to it. We are huge fans.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I had Gaster.
Big
for
influence.
Those who don't know,
I saw him play with Sonic Youth at, I guess it was 20 years ago now. Over.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean the interview happened recently, and so Gaster del Sol were just on my show, and. At one point, in the preamble, like you and I did, we talked before I hit record, and Jim O'Rourke was in Sonic Youth for a spell, and he was like, "Oh, yep. Sonic Youth." He said something like that, and then in the course of the conversation, he was talking about different people he collaborated with, and with someone like Jim, he's going to mention all these, for me anyway, obscure improvising musicians. Some I know, some I don't know, and I'm like, "What's he saying?" At one point, he's like, and of course, that's when I started working with those people on the wall, and then he just kept talking, and I didn't catch it at the time, and then I was editing it, and because as I was editing, I would Google who he was. I was like, I don't know that name, and then I was like, people on the wall. Who was he talking about? So I was like, I was Googling like Jim O'Rourke, The Wall. What is that a reference to? Is it an album I don't know because he's so prolific? Anyway, I figured out. I looked around my office. He meant that. I sent him an email being like, Jim, I was completely perplexed for 10 minutes. He's like, sorry. Didn't mean to confuse everyone. Sorry, guys. I'm telling you, this Sonic Youth poster, huge conversation starter. It just everything diverts. Anyway, where were we going with this? Grunge kid. So you got into music, but
I think the last thing was grunge kids, Cobain.
Yes.
And I mean, it's like, when that music identity with the music, I mean, that stuff started coming on the radio when we were 11 and 10 years old. So,
but you, Anthony, pompadour, leather jacket, cuff jeans. I'm adding some items to the fashion itinerary here, but what were you into at the time that Janelle was into the grunge scene, so to speak?
Oh, well, I mean, through my parents, I was really into blues, like Howlin' Wolf and Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Walter, Muddy Waters and stuff like that. And I was always hearing doo-wop and surf music because my dad was in a surf band when he was in high school. So guitar instrumental music was always there. And then Jimi Hendrix. But then, like I was saying, when this music came on the radio when we were 11 in 91, it's like that was feeling like it was contemporary music being made for us. And so on the radio, there was there were elements of noise guitar. So it never seemed like anything crazy to me to, play something skronky. And it was exciting too, because once that music came on, then there was stuff to dig into and the underground, but just like everything else. But yeah, I was into doo-wop and rockabilly. Danny Gatton from DC mixed up the styles of country, jazz, blues, rock, rockabilly, all Les Paul style guitar. So I was just kind of listening to everything.
And the cello, by the way, Janelle, so you lived in a small home of some kind, and then you take up the cello, which is about the most enormous instrument I can think of, really, except for maybe a baby grand piano or probably something else I'm not thinking of. Church organ. What drew you to actually take up the cello? We didn't get to that yet, I don't think. Yeah, what drew you to take up the cello?
Well, I have a twin sister, and we were offered strings in third grade, as part of the public school system here in that county. And I chose violin, and Leanne chose the cello. And I was so jealous, but I really just kept it in. I was like, she's going to abandon it. Next year she can do band, and she's going to do band, and I'll just swoop up. And because if I make a big deal out of it, she might fall in love with it. And that's a problem. So I literally just sat on it in third grade and watched her play that thing. I was like, I love that thing, because the violin was just so tinny and difficult. I mean, it's so hard to play the violin at a young age. You don't have the facilities or the ability to hold the bow, and it's crunchy and just piercing. And so I was able to grab the cello, and I ran.
In the latter days of Nirvana, one of their touring members and contributors was Lori Goldston, who played.
I know, I met her.
Oh, nice!
I love her. Yes.
Where did you meet? Where did you meet her?
Well, I was living in Seattle, working with a wonderful musician who I consider a teacher, named Avon Kong. And while I was in Seattle, I did get to see her perform, and I don't usually fan out, but I did. Yeah. I fanned out, and she was very nice about it.
So I know you mentioned the connection to your sister, but was Lori an influence on you wanting to take it up, given your love of Nirvana?
Well, I hadn't yet gotten into Nirvana in third grade, so that was later, but I was just so excited because I was like, oh my gosh, I can do so many cool things with this thing. It's going to be awesome. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So this is very lovely. You knew each other in high school, and then you reconvened. Sorry, you and Anthony, not you and Lori. I didn't mean to confuse things, Janelle. Anthony, you started playing at on Lori's property, and that was just sort of
Janelle.
Or sorry, on Joe. I'm sorry. Now you hung out with Kurt Cobain, Chris Novoselic, and Lori Goldston. Dave Grohl would come by sometimes. I was in the first version of
Nirvana.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I got very confused. I'm too many names flipping around here. Let's go back to the bonfire improvs. And I'll start with Janelle.
Oh no.
Improvisation, was that new to you at the time? I gather it was from what you said. You met Anthony, and then everything kind of turned. I'll put it more nicely. Everything kind of changed. Maybe in your approach to music. Is that saying too much? Is that right?
I'm so thankful to Anthony. First of all, I'm definitely just kidding around. Like, I don't mean to be like gruff or anything. I'm so happy that, I went down this path. It's definitely saved my music career, I would say, because classically I could not carry on playing that way. Physically, it's very challenging to play the cello, and actually have had a lot of physical problems. So improvisation has been amazing for me because I can do exactly what my body is able to do, and that has enabled me to continue playing throughout my whole life, and that's been very, very important. In fact, I quit music for a year in college, even though I was a major in cello in classical performance. And when we were meeting to play, I realized, there are other ways of doing this. So it's definitely like a lifesaver in a lot of ways. I think, I would have found something else, but I'm just so happy doing what I'm doing. And I definitely credit Anthony for that.
Oh, lovely. Anthony, we were talking about some of the things you heard on the radio and potentially your father's influence on you. I don't know if we actually nailed down when you started playing guitar. And it's funny, this is, I think, the third time we've chatted. And I think in the context of the Messthetics, maybe we just haven't got into so much personal history. What actually prompted you to pick up a guitar in the first place?
I don't remember exactly. I remember wanting one when I was 5 years old and asking for it. I probably just saw someone playing it in a movie, playing guitar in a movie or on television, and thought it was exciting. But I got a guitar when I was 10 years old, when I was just about to turn 11. And I got the guitar because, like I said, my dad was in a band, and he had a guitar, 1963 Jaguar, under his bed. And one day I just decided to take it out, and I went to the library and got a videotape on how to play guitar, and I learned Roy Orbison's Pretty Woman. And when my dad came home from work, I showed him, and he showed me how to play the lick to Sunshine Your Love. Then I got lessons. So, my dad really loves music. So I learned a lot of stuff from being in the car with him. Like I said, he would have mixtapes of doo-wop and stuff like that. But then my mom also just took me to see concerts. So even though I was very young, when I was maybe 12 or 13, they took me to see Dick Dale when he came out with Tribal Thunder and started building his career up again. And then, my mom was the one that would take me to see things. Like I got to see Nirvana when I was 13 on the In Utero tour. So and the Breeders opened. That was the first show I ever saw. And I was like, yeah, this seems like a fun thing to do.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really
so my
great.
Parents were very, very supportive. Yeah.
I'm still mad I passed up a chance to go to that tour, the In Utero tour. Someone had an extra ticket, and I had just had kind of a traumatizing experience at a outdoor concert where there was I was stuck in a mosh pit that I didn't understand was going to happen. It was big burly dudes in Canada. And I found it I was afraid. And then the Nirvana thing came up, and I was like, I don't really want to, I don't think so. But then in retrospect, it was at an arena. It was a seat. I would not have been in any mosh pit. So I missed my chance. My cowardice as a child made me miss Nirvana on that tour. And obviously I didn't get to see them. So anyway, that's really cool. That's really cool. So when did Dick Dale, that's a key influence there. And we've mentioned some other great guitar players. When did you start to explore improvisation as a means of expression?
Okay, well, I mean, basically from the beginning, because my dad and I used to play with each other in the basement, would just play guitar together. And he would talk to me about the blues. He taught me the blues progression. And he was like, well, I mean, when you're playing blues, there are solos and you improvise them. And so I was talking to my dad about it from the very beginning. And, he's the one that I asked him how Jimi Hendrix sounded so great. And he would say, I think he's hearing what he's playing just before he plays it. So, just having conversations with my parents and talking, to my mom after shows about the music just helped me kind of figure out these ideas. But it was always a part of it, understanding that Jimmy Page is taking solos. They're probably improvised. Well, if you watch the live concert film, that's a lot different from the record. So I'm like, well, there's a lot of improvisation going on here. And then maybe a few years later, I got into the high school jazz band, and improvisation became a little bit more focused. And then I heard the Ornette Matheny record, Song X, and then John Zorn, and it all opened up.
I see.
But that all happened probably up until I was 16.
Okay, I think I've got it. So I want to talk about, and I don't mean to use the term formalized per se, but Janelle, when did you and Anthony start to really think, let's write, in the realm of improvisation, this can be a tricky term to use, but let's actually record music together and work on things together. Janelle, do you recall when that, Beyond the Bonfire in the Forest? Good Lord, it sounds like from Lord of the Rings. Beyond the Bonfire in the Forest, when did you actually start to think, let's actually play together and record things together? Do you recall?
Well, we wrote some songs for, I used to have all these little parties where I would invite friends, and we didn't announce that this was a concert, but I just said, okay, everyone sit down, and then we just played for them. And we were preparing for that. So, yeah.
You forced your friends to listen to you play music? Like,
She told them to come over for a party and insisted that they just sit down and listen to us play.
Well,
it was amazing.
I said, hey, we wrote some music. It's good.
wait a minute. How old were you when you did this?
Well, I guess we were like, what, 21, 22, something like
21,
that?
22, something like that.
Wow,
Yeah.
This is a new version of the guitar guy at the party who won't stop playing the guitar. I've never heard of anyone forcing people to come to you. That's an amazing. I wish I'd thought of that, frankly. I don't even think it's a bad idea. That's pretty good.
I feel like it was more like we asked everyone to listen. It wasn't like
I don't know
forcing.
that I forced them,
sure.
but it sounds
Well, it's
good.
just it seems like you fooled them. And the auspices was like, yeah, bring some chips. We'll have some soda pop. It'll be nothing. Well, maybe we'll play cards. And they show up and you're like, all right, sit down. We've got something to present. And you're like, what? What the hell is going on? That's funny. That's
We're going to spontaneously compose something for you.
So, by the way, the party music that you're talking about, or that Janelle was talking about, Anthony, was that improvisation?
No, we worked up a couple songs.
She just mentioned that, yeah.
I remember we did, I remember, Janelle, that we played that John Abercrombie song from Gateway.
Mm-hmm. And we played Little Cottage in the Woods in Japanese
one of
maple.
our songs. Yeah,
We're
that's
very
what I
inspired by, where we were writing music. So our first record has a lot of, forest dwelling songs, I would say.
So the configuration was guitar and cello and voice at the party? No.
Just cello and guitar.
Okay. When did you... and I don't mean to overflatter you, but I really love your singing, Janelle. And this double record that we're here to talk about is rather unique in this regard. But when did you start actually singing?
Well, I was studying when I was young for many years with a vocal teacher, and I kind of got away from it when I started doing cello. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you actually were formally trained as a vocalist as well?
For a period when I was quite young.
Okay. Do you have any particular... I can't really pin down who or what you sound like, which is really great. But did you have...
Wow.
Did you have particular singing heroes, if you will?
Sure. Karen O. and... Oh, no. The singer from Portishead.
Yes.
And, I'll just start there.
So, airy...
Broadcast.
Right.
The singer from Broadcast.
So you got some forceful singing. You've got some airy kind of singing. I don't know how to, like almost an ambient voice, if you will. I don't know how to put this. I'm stumbling, but yeah. So you have like...
Well, she's like virtuosic too.
Yeah.
I mean, her range is crazy,
Yeah. Okay. I interrupt this episode of my own show for a brief thank you for hearing my call to support me and my work on Patreon. We have seen a lot of growth in Patreon support over the last little while, which is amazing because that's my primary source of income these days. And I love doing this job that I invented for myself a whole lot. Creative Control is a listener-supported podcast. Do podcasters receive any streaming royalties from podcast platforms? No, not any. Does podcast advertising pay the bills? Not for a show at this scale, no. Do all podcasters get paid by companies for their work like some celebrities do? No, most of us do not. We do this work to support our communities and because we love it. So what's the most reliable source of income for podcasters like me? Crowdfunding platforms like Patreon. So if you love Creative Control with Vish Khanna and want to see it continue, please see the notes in this episode. Click on the link that takes you to my Patreon and its different donation tiers with various incentives and benefits, and support me and my work today. Thank you again so much. And then songwriting itself, how does that work in this configuration? Anthony, do you work on lyrics together?
Oh, no. That's all Janelle.
Okay.
But from the first record, you wrote the lyrics to the song on the first record, actually, because I hadn't yet gotten into lyric writing.
Okay, so yeah, that's fair enough. Our first record came out in 2006.
Yeah.
We recorded in my room with one SM57, and that has a vocal piece on it called Your Tune, and I did write the lyrics to that.
Nice.
I don't know why, but
you don't
needed
remember what
words.
You don't remember what inspired it.
Well, I mean, it was just at the time. I mean, we were pretty much just out of music school, and I was interested in folk music. I was really interested in John Fahey because he's from here, and what that kind of style could do to complement our music. We were also going out to West Virginia to learn some old time music occasionally from a friend who had a grant to study with musicians out there. And I was really interested in like Norman Blake, what he was doing with his wife Nancy. So I don't know. We were just leaning into kind of the more folky side of things back then.
I see.
And so those lyrics would have just been kind of like my attempt to maybe make something folky sounding.
Okay, I appreciate this background. Let's start to dive into these releases a little bit more.
Okay.
And oh, by the way, Janelle, did you learn anything from this little exercise of going through your memory banks with Anthony? I'm just curious.
I don't know.
No.
I mean, I always learn something from Anthony when he's talking about his background. So, yeah.
Probably something there. Anthony, have you learned anything from me or Janelle? I just like to check in to make sure you're not going to fail the test.
I've learned a lot. I think I've said it twice already that I've been learning throughout this conversation. I continue to learn.
That's true. That's true. You had a pompadour. You probably didn't even know you had a pompadour.
Wait, I did?
He did.
Apparently.
He did.
Apparently he did.
And a leather jacket? Wow.
Well, that was my addition. Converse. I picture pompadour, leather jacket, white t-shirt, cuff jeans, Converse All-Stars, something like that.
How do you know me that well?
I don't know.
He's wearing it right now.
Okay, so we've got 3 records to talk about. Maybe we should do this because 2 of them are kind of individual efforts, if you will, to some extent. And then we've got this collaborative album, which I think now that we've talked is a perfect amalgam of everything we've been talking about. The double album, it seems like to follow like some sort of culmination of all the interests you've had since you were young. But let's start with the records that are, I guess, nominally by each of you individually. Janelle, what can you tell us about To March Is to Love by the Ensemble Volcanic Ash? I've been enjoying this record a lot, and but it can be a bit hard to characterize for someone like me because I'm not that bright. How would you characterize this band and this record?
Well, it's my outlet for all of my jazz writing that I like to do. And I've had different players over the years where I've experimented with different instruments. The original ensemble had bassoon and harp and saxophone and cello. And then it evolved to the group that it is now. And this group started forming in 2007. So it's been, locked away for a while. It took me a long time to incubate and get comfortable. And something about COVID kind of lit a fire and made me come up with 2 albums very quickly, really. I mean, the first album was a long time coming, but the second one I wrote very quickly. And it's certainly related to the political situation we have here. And of course, how heightened that is being in Washington, D.C., and how we are affected by whatever is happening in the White House. So, yeah, it's a call to action. Both cellists are bookending both sides of the record. Starts with Abdul Wadud and then ends with a tribute to Pablo Casals. And both of them were activists in their own ways and very inspiring to me.
You mentioned the political landscape, also the, I guess, I was going to say socio-cultural, but maybe socio-medical landscape with the pandemic and how everyone's actually dealing with that. Do you feel that, I don't know if you were suggesting that stuff, I think you were alluding to the fact that it lit a fire, is that what you said? Lit a fire under you, which could be a fire of passion, but I wonder, is there an urgency as well on some level?
Definitely. Yeah.
Because of how the pandemic and this time has reframed our relationship to time?
Partially. And I'm hesitant to say it, but I guess I will. I mean, to be honest, I've been kind of having the sense that there was going to be a time where things could potentially limit what musicians can do publicly. And I think that's not being talked about very much, but I think we're all feeling it in our hearts. And I definitely am feeling that. And I think the only way to actually face any of that in this country is going to be like people in the streets and, actually doing something. So
you were just saying something there about, I guess, the material conditions for musicians. And can you elaborate upon what you mean by something for musicians on the horizon is going to change?
Well, I hope that that's not the case, but left to their own devices, I think that our community could be really impacted by the cultural entities that we're all dealing with, and the need to suppress all kinds of, cultural exchange. I don't really know how else to explain it. And of course, that's a religious context, which we're dealing with here in these States. And I guess in Canada, you're also dealing with it.
Yeah. I agree with you. Anthony, what do you make of that? I mean, when Janelle talks about this, I think of venues closing down. I think of the fact that music has been relegated to the most devalued I think it ever has been on the one hand, and yet some of us are still all in. Anthony, what do you make of what we're talking about? Do you feel that as a touring musician as well?
I mean, yeah, it's, here in DC, when we were starting, there were maybe 5 or 6 jazz clubs. We're down to 1 now. And it actually closed for a while and decided to stay open. So, I mean, the outlets for, performances are going away. But with that being said, we have a really amazing DIY space called Rhizome here in DC. That is a place where, they're completely open to anything. It just feels like a really great environment, and we're surrounded by really open people. And I mean, I've had some of my best musical experiences there as a audience member and a performer. So the good thing for me is that, we're always going to find a way to get the community together to do performances, exchange ideas. It just might not be, on huge levels. But when we were getting started, we were starting here in the experimental scene, and it was just, we'd play wherever we could in DIY spaces. And, you surround yourself with people that, are open, and that's the best.
Yeah. Janelle, earlier I invoked the phrase urgency, but as we're speaking, there's urgency, but did you also approach any of this music that you made with your ensemble or with Anthony here as maybe this is it somehow? I have to, sometimes people say things like, live your life like it's your last day on earth. And it's sort of a cliche, but as a musician and someone in a crumbling arts infrastructure, do you have thoughts like, maybe this is the last time I'll do this, maybe? Does that come to mind as you're working?
What actually does come to mind, I mean, you're not far off sometimes in my thinking, but it's not really like, oh, this is the last record, but I definitely get this feeling like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. You know what I mean? So, but it's a bit paranoid, I think, probably. I hope that it's paranoia, but I will say really quickly about Rhizome, Anthony brought up Rhizome. When I say light of fire, what I did was I scheduled 4 residency dates at Rhizome for my ensemble. So I would write new music for those 4 dates, and out of that would come the records, and so the musicians would get the music the day of the concert. We'd look through it and work on it some together, and then we performed kind of almost like a workshop. And so the community at Rhizome is just so brilliant and wonderful, and they've supported both records in that context.
I see. Yeah, there's an audience remark here that's included in the info about the record, and the audience member said it felt like the whole building was going to come off of its foundation. So very intense to be in the room, I gather. Did you feel that on stage?
I mean, yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting. And that place was going to go away. But then the community came together and they raised $250,000 to secure a new location, and potentially, I think they're buying it now. So, with all the uncertainty, communities really are coming together to save venues, when they can.
Yeah. Well, as I say, it's a really glorious record, and I want to spend more and more time with it, to be honest with you. but I had a lot of records to listen to for this interview, so please forgive
Yes.
me. There's a lot going on. Which brings us to, speaking of artists and struggles, potentially, I don't know if this is a play on the notion of a starving artist, but Anthony, your record is called The Hunger Artist. It consists of 2 pieces. What can you tell us about that?
Well, The Hunger Artist, it's named after the Kafka short story that I read when I was very young. And it has to do with, I told myself I wouldn't get too specific with this, so I'm going to be vague on purpose. But it's a...
Wait, you told yourself in the preparing for this interview you wouldn't tell me information?
just as I'm talking about and promoting this record, I don't want to be very specific.
I see. Okay, got it.
So, but I will talk about the idea behind it is about friends that are no longer here, and the people that are still here. So this was a way to kind of honor some people that are no longer with us. So side A is this 30-piece ensemble doing a drone composition that I wrote. That was recorded many years ago, actually. I did a version of In C and released it during the pandemic, but it was recorded, I think, in 2011. And it took a lot to get 30 people together to record. So I had this graphic score, which I called the Hunger Artist. It's basically a drone piece with dynamics and time cues. But I had that sitting around, and it occurred to me I could, use it for this purpose. And I asked Rob Mazurek to be the featured soloist and improvise on it, and he agreed to do it. And that is just is a personal expression. So, and then the second side is a long form free improvisation that we did with some dear friends who are all connected in a certain way. So that was nothing but a template for a form where I basically just said, we all play, soloist plays, we all play, soloist plays. And we did that recorded that in Brooklyn. And that is kind of like, having to do with the people that are here.
I see.
And interacting. So,
okay. So it's grief and celebration maybe is a way of distinguishing the two sides?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. And how do you come to know Rob? As the last time you were on the show, which was just earlier this year, Anthony, I mentioned that Rob and I are friendly, and he's been on the show a few times. How do you come to know Rob?
Well, actually, the first kind of creative instrumental music I saw in person was the Chicago Underground duo. So,
oh, nice.
They came and played in DC at the Metro Gallery, and I was maybe like 20. And it just blew my mind. So I became a fan then. And, Janelle works with Chad now, too. So
wonderful.
But being on Cuneiform, when our record Where's Home came out in 2012, Rob was releasing stuff with them as well. So they came and played in Baltimore at the Wine Space. And Janelle and I went to see them and met him there. And then they played at Bohemian Caverns in D.C. And, I've just kind of run into him here and there. When I was playing in Saalfelden at the festival in Austria, he was there with Jamie Branch. So we were just like all hanging out. And he was always really nice to us. And I just figured I'd ask him if he was interested. And he said yes.
Oh, well, that's lovely. Rob and Chad are both lovely. I've been on this show before as well. And they're just the best. And this is also a wonderful record. So congratulations to you, Anthony.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, the album we're about to talk about, 12 years in the making, was your album 13 years in the making?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Oh.
I mean, it was a piece that I had sitting around, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then all of a sudden it just occurred to me it would be a nice way to, honor an idea.
I was kind of joking. I didn't think you would be like, yes. It was. It was actually.
I mean, I was doing the math. I think it's right.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Something. You know what? There's an old expression. It's funny because it's true. So I think that's what we've just landed on there. All right. Now we're going to get to the album I was just alluding to. This is Janel and Anthony, New Moon in the Evil Age. This is a double record and quite different, the two records. Janelle, can you give us a little background on how this came to be, the conversations that were had about, what? In a way, we've got two different ideas here, but they're of a whole. Can you explain how this was conceived and also why they are connected, the two records on this double record?
Yeah, listening to it, I think it really kind of makes sense. To explain it, I'm not exactly sure, other than, the way I can explain it is that it comes from the minds and the hands of two musicians who, usually are just playing cello and guitar. But really, we have lots of interests, in other instruments, playing instruments. And so we're both playing all kinds of keyboards, and there's a lot of production on the vocal, like the second record. Mm-hmm. So that just really signifies it brings together so many of our interests, and which is why Cuneiform really made sense for this record as well, because of their kind of progressive leanings. And I definitely think that there's a little bit of hearkening of that. And so it's kind of uniting many sides of ourselves as musicians, and as we're the type of people who don't like to limit ourselves in terms of genre, this album really kind of is committed to that.
Yeah, it works really well together. I wonder if you see them, Janel, as conversational in a way, the two records. I don't know how to maybe elaborate upon that too much. Like, do you see I assume these records are combined. I'm saying all the wrong words. I assume okay. I assume these records are connected because they're of a time and place. But do you see other connections between the second record, which is lyrics based, and the first record that is instrumentally based? Do you see them in kind of conversation with each other in any kind of way, Janel?
The uniting force of these records, I really think, is the location where it was recorded, because we lived in so many different locations. I don't know how many times we've moved over the course of our relationship. Very transient, our personal lives have been. And so I saw like Yoda just now. Okay. Anyway, The Brink is where we recorded these records, and that is our musical home. And so place is so important to our music, and almost everything is related to that. So, and at the end of this record, incredibly, we had to help Mike move his studio to Richmond. So we thought we were saying goodbye to that studio, but he set up shop there now. So the point is that we finished both of these records in the same location, even when we were getting to the very, very end of its life. And we recorded just a little bit more and in Richmond. And, over the years, we would just like, oh, we've got $600. We can go to the studio for a couple days, and so we would just kind of gather money and, go as much as we could. But we put a lot into our duo records, and, there's a lot of time and effort involved. It's not like, oh, we're going in for a day, boom, you have a record, Yeah. Ensemble Volcanic Ash is like that. I can do that with these musicians. But for this band, we really take our time with things.
Yeah, I mean, just scanning some of the locations where songs were either conceived or recorded, it is a little bonkers. San Francisco, Monterey, California, Virginia, Brooklyn. I don't know. This is like a where in the world is Carmen Sandiego of albums. It's quite remarkable in this regard. Anthony, I wonder if you guys ever had this, like, I get the time and space, time and place aspect, but did you ever have a conversation of like, maybe this is two separate things as opposed to one double record? And by the way, I don't say this second guessing what you've done. I just want to get at what distinguishes the two parts of the record. And also, did you ever think like maybe those are separate entities? Did that come up, Anthony?
I mean, yeah, of course it did, because, we made our first record, like I said, at home with a single microphone, and we were just basically making the music for us. And we started playing out, and, people started buying the records from us at our shows, and we felt like we were doing something, worth pursuing. And then Cuneiform released our second record, and that did quite well in the press. And we had always discussed doing a vocal project, but we didn't want it to seem like we were shifting the project drastically. Yeah. But I mean, that didn't stop us from continuing to work on the vocal material. It's just we weren't sure if it was going to be if we should use a different band name, or have it be Janel and Anthony. But in the end, we were just like, we've accumulated all of these tracks. If the albums sit side by side and, we listen to it and it feels like the work is building across the entire, piece as a whole. I mean, I think we just both felt that it worked and it was successful. But, we'd also were thinking about Tom Verlaine at some point released an instrumental record and a vocal record simultaneously.
Yeah.
So, it was something that we were trying to figure out, but I think we're both very proud of how it sits as a whole now.
Yeah, it struck me that the album is called New Moon in the Evil Age, and the first piece on the first record, as far as I can tell, is called New Moon. And then in the vocal album, The Evil Age is the second song. And so it's not quite a tone setter. Sorry, I'm just getting into semantics here. But I just noticed that, and I thought that was interesting because obviously I would, just looking at the titles, I would think those are really connected ideas. Janelle, you were talking earlier about this time, and we've been talking about your own personal time and place, but lyrically, this is definitely disc 2, if you will, is definitely about contemporary times. Is that a way of putting it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
It's restless. You can feel a restlessness, but also there's an ease within the restlessness, I think.
Yeah, you need resolve when you're restless and paranoid. You need something to keep you going, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. This is a remarkable feat, and I'm very happy for both of you that you have so much great music coming out at the same time. As I say, you must be excited and, as I said earlier, I should say, you're probably both excited and relieved. Anthony, do you feel those two swirling emotions? Do you feel anything else, by the way?
Oh, no. I mean, like I said, I'm proud of this work, but it was on my mind for a long time. Like, this project is very important to both of us, but we both also got very busy with other projects, and we continued to work on this when we could, like Janelle said, and it was a priority. But I mean, to see it existing and hold this LP right now is very satisfying. I mean, with the time and place thing too, it's kind of hard to deal with the fact, you think you're writing songs and then they become like a huge part of your life's work because, you said there's some kind of feeling sometimes of, is this the last one?
Yeah.
And, when you have something that you love, that you're having a hard time getting out there or finishing, it can take a lot of energy from you and your other work. So I'm just grateful that, Janelle and I are able to share this with people.
Well, for what it's worth, as someone receiving it, I am too. Congratulations. I don't know if it's premature to talk about future plans because you guys have just released enough music to last a lifetime. So some artists would be like, I'm done, tapped out, I got nothing else. Janelle, I will ask about future plans though. Have you contemplated what a next move might be for you musically or artistically beyond the weaving?
Well, I'm sitting here in my studio and I've got some sketches and I have a trio with Dev Hoff and Chad Taylor. So I think probably I'm going in that direction as a trio for a little while.
Mm-hmm. And anything, this is speculative or some plans?
It's already recorded.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
Okay. It's ready to go. I just have to find a home for it. And then, we'll do some touring here and there. And, after that, I probably do another solo record, probably do some more ensemble music. And Anthony and I have already discussed writing the next Janel and Anthony record because the hardest thing about having a record this old is that you start thinking, okay, we're doing everything from the past. We need to write something that's present,
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck on that. If people want to keep sort of tabs on you specifically, Janelle, is there somewhere they can go on the internet?
Sure. On my just JanelleLeppin.com, you can see all of the projects and all the artists I've worked with over the many years touring and recording. And then on Bandcamp, Janelle Leppin at Bandcamp, or I don't know what that link is exactly.
That's fine. I'll find it and I'll link to it for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anthony, similar questions about future projects and maybe it sounds like we got a little bit of insight about Janel and Anthony's stuff from Janel just now, but anything you want to talk about that's coming up, and in the same vein, anywhere you can point us to learn more about it?
Well, at this point, I'm feeling pretty caught up with recorded material, so it's time for me to kind of think about what the next thing is going to be. So I don't have any specific information. There's supposed to be a record coming out later this year with Jarrett Gilgore, who's a sax player.
In October, is that right? In October?
I think that's right. But I don't have the details quite yet. So
don't worry, I clearly I do. I'm somehow your manager again. I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry. No, I think you told me the last time you had some coming out in October. That's all I remember.
That's right.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of touring coming up with Messthetics and James Brandon Lewis, and Janelle and I have shows coming up. But that's that's all that I have right now. I mean, I have to think of some more things. But I think I forgot to mention, can I talk about the Hunger Artist for 1 second?
Oh, of
on
course.
Side
Sorry.
B, I should say who was on that side B for the free improvisation. It was me, Janelle Leppin, Luke Stewart, Jason Nazare, and Jarrett Gilgore. So I just want to give everyone a thanks for taking part.
Oh, that's very kind of you, and well done. I'm glad you thought of that. It is a remarkable ensemble as well. And I understand you gave them sort of like the direction to kind of just play frenetically on some level. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I just told everyone we're going to play with high intensity throughout the long form piece. Yeah. And like I said, there was a template, but that's all. And, you know, in that kind of, like when playing with Janelle or the Messthetics or anyone like that, there's a real trust. And, you know, I know that we're all just on the same page and have an understanding about music. So that was just take two, and it all happened, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah. Well, you should be. I was just on the phone with your friend and mine, Brendan Canty from the Messthetics the other day, and we were just catching up, and I asked him how the touring with the Messthetics and James Brandon Lewis was going, and he said, really, really well. And so I was happy to hear that from him. Do you agree with him, Anthony, or do you feel like he's stretching the truth, or he's underselling how great it's going? Anything like that?
No, everyone's having a really great time. The three of us have been playing for like 7 years now, so we have our thing going on. And with James, it was just a lot of fun. Everyone got along while we were traveling, and the crowds were really appreciating the music. So yeah, it couldn't have been any better.
Oh, wonderful. That's great to hear. And thanks again for making time to be on the show to talk about that great record you made. It really meant a lot.
Thank you for talking to me again.
Always a pleasure. Okay, now we have a tricky thing. It's the trickiest it's ever been. Normally at this point, I ask my guest if we can go out on a song from their latest album. Sometimes, as Anthony knows, it's a few different people have to make a collective decision on the fly. Again, never had 3 albums potentially to choose from. Janelle, I'm going to put you on the hot seat and ask you to pick a song for us to go out on from anything we've been discussing. And then Anthony can agree or disagree, and then we'll go out on whatever that piece is. So a lot of pressure on you right now, Janelle. I'm sorry. Is there a song from any of the releases we've been talking about that you think we should go out on right now?
I'll just lean into Fly Over Iceland, I would say.
Okay. Why did that come to mind?
It's just a song that we both love, and yeah, that's all.
Okay. Do you want to tell us anything about its? This is by the way, so just so we're clear, this is a lyrical song, and I just wonder if you can give us. Actually, I have a little thing here. Janelle composed the lyrics on a flight home after a long tour, and the song allows for the feeling of 2 people longing to be reunited. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Janelle, wasn't it also during the Volcanic thing?
Yeah, I was on tour with Kit Malone's Rain Machine in Europe, and at the end, Anthony and I were supposed to meet in Europe for a little vacation together, but that got scrapped, and we got stuck for another 2 weeks at the end of a 6-week tour, and we got stuck in Ireland. And then flying home, you just had this feeling that, okay, we could die right now because there's all this glass in the air, from the ash, which is where I came up with the name of the band, Ensemble Volcanic Ash. And I wrote music on that plane, but I also wrote these lyrics. It was a very interesting way to use that energy.
Wow. Okay. Very nice. I appreciate that explanation. Sorry, Anthony, are you okay with us going out on Fly Over Iceland, or do you want to selfishly pick something that you wrote?
No, no. I think that's a good choice. Like Janelle said, it was the first vocal piece that we performed live when we were doing our instrumental duo. It ties in Ava, and yeah, perfect. I think that's a great choice.
Okay. This is Fly Over Iceland from the wonderful new double album, New Moon in the Evil Age by Janel and Anthony. And Janel and Anthony, thank you so much for making time for me today and being on my show. I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and I hope we talk again sometime in the future. Otherwise, best of luck. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Vish.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Vish.
There you have it. Brand new music by Janel and Anthony. What a pleasure to speak with them. I'm so happy they were on the show. I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and we'll check out their music. They have a lot to choose from. Since we've spoken, they probably each released 3 other records. I don't know. But they're wonderful, and I think you should check them out. So please do, and I want to thank them again for appearing on this, the 887th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Lionsgate Sound Network and is available wherever it is you get your podcasts. If you can't find an episode you're looking for out there, or if you want to learn more about me, please visit vishkhanna.com. Also, click on the hyperlink text that says follow Vish online to find me on social media platforms and whatever else I put in that link tree thing. Also, please visit patreon.com/creative control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep me and this podcast going. This is my primary source of work, and it's really fun, but as you can imagine, it can be a little lean sometimes. And the Patreon folks have really stepped up. And if you join the Patreon at $6 American or its currency equivalent for the monthly tier at $6 and higher, you get access to exclusive content and I would think more importantly, every single episode of the show in its entirety, which isn't the case if you don't have a minimum $6 American monthly subscription. So please, if you'd like to keep tabs on everything that's going on in the show, even at $1 a month, you get my weekly newsletter and you learn some things there about me and my life and who's coming up on the show. So you could start there and just feel it out. But yeah, starting at $6, never miss an episode, never miss any content. You get a lot of stuff. And there's other advantages as you go up higher in the tiers. So yeah, check out patreon.com/creative control today if you can. Thank you so much. Also want to thank some independent businesses, Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf in Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario, for their in-kind support for me and the show. Also want to thank Jim Guthrie. Jim's the best, and there's some music playing in the background as I'm speaking right now. That's Jim. That's Jim. He wrote that. You can learn more about all of his amazing songs at jimguthrie.org. And finally, thank you for listening to this episode with Janel and Anthony and checking out their music. Please subscribe to this podcast if you don't already, or follow it. And if you can, leave nice ratings and reviews on your pod platform. That actually does help. And telling your friends about it is really, really meaningful as well. If you like it, maybe they'll like it. You never know. And that's it. I hope you're doing well out there, and I hope you enjoyed this episode again. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again. Bye for now.